Thank you. So, hi everyone. My name, as mentioned, is Jessica Satuyo. I am the Senior Enrollment Services Counselor at California State University Maritime Academy. Now, you guys can all understand why we prefer to go by Cal Maritime. Actually, our entire name doesn't fit on some people's job applications down the line. So most people just call us CSU Maritime Academy. We have many names, and we actually have a few different identities because we have been around for a long, long time. And I'll talk a little bit about our history and why it's so unique in just a minute. But really quick, I just want to direct some attention to that photo. It's a beautiful aerial shot of our campus. And what I always like to point out is that you guys really get to see the waterfront views that we have. That's the Carquinez Strait, that waterway. And then also you have Highway 80 right next to our campus. But because we're tucked down at the bottom of these two hills, you actually cannot hear Highway 80. So it's kind of like we disappear into our own little eucalyptus bubble. Now that giant field you see there, that is Bodner Field, our rugby field. And while it's deceptive, it looks like it's right next to our classroom buildings. It's actually at the top of the hill. So all of our infrastructure has been slowly scaled up on top of these hills, which means most of these buildings all have waterfront views instead of being stacked behind each other. Now, as I mentioned, we have kind of a unique history. We are both a California State University, which means we are a public state-funded institution, and then we're also a maritime academy, which means we're a federally funded institution. So we've been a maritime academy since 1929, which means we were tasked with teaching America's young adults, so post-high school graduates, how to maintain and operate or navigate commercial vessels like cruise ships and container ships and tugboats and ferries and barges and all of that. So non-military vessels. About 25 years ago or so, we also joined the Cal State system because we realized that we needed to expand what programs we had to offer, and being able to join the Cal State system gave us the ability to do that, but it also gave us the ability to come under the Cal State umbrella and share their resources like the traditional study abroad semester and having access to all of the other campuses' libraries through interlibrary loans. So there's a lot of benefits to being a part of both systems. So as a result, we're kind of a unique CSU, and we're also a unique maritime academy. We are the smallest Cal State by about 6,000 students. The next largest one is going to be Cal State Monterey Bay. We have just under 1,000, so our average class size is nice and small. Some of our classes, like laboratories and simulators, they physically only have room for 5, maybe 10 people. So those, again, are going to be very, very small, but it's how we make sure that students are actually getting time with the equipment that they need. And that's something we take very seriously. So we emphasize a hands-on learning approach in all of our majors, all 4 years. So students are starting their core classes, so classes that are directly associated to their main area of study in the first year and continuing all 4 years and the summer. All students are required to complete an internship before they graduate. Some majors actually have to do 2. And all students are required to complete an international travel component through Cal Maritime. So we'll talk about the travel component a little bit later on, but all of this is designed towards helping students prepare for the job market down the line, making them, competitive through projects that they've been able to work on and basically bringing something to the table, and also making sure that they have work experience. So they have letters of recommendation and references that they can bring into an interview to back them up. So we have 7 degrees. There is no undecided at Cal Maritime. The other 22 campuses all have an undecided program available, which means you can get admitted to that Cal State, and then after the first year or second year there, then you can declare your major, and that works when there's 7,500 or 12,000 students. It does not work when you have under 1,000 students and you are trying to, like I said, guarantee 4 years worth of hands-on experience. So we do require that students students research and select their major that they intend to graduate from when they apply, because it also is a little difficult to change your major here. It's not impossible, but it is a lengthy process. It's not something that happens as fast at our sister Cal States. And again, that's partially because we start you immediately. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to graduate in 3 years if you jump straight from business to engineering, because you've been on a set path already. Now, I do want to note the majors that do not have asterisks after them. So that's business, global studies, and oceanography. These 3 majors are not impacted, meaning that they are not competitive for admissions. And if students meet the CSU minimum requirements, they will be guaranteed a spot in that program. Our engineering majors, including mechanical engineering, facilities engineering technology, and marine engineering technology, and marine transportation, which is our navigation major. These 4 majors are impacted. However, the level of impaction has changed. In previous years, it was very heavily impacted. It was very competitive to get in. However, last year, and we expect this year, those numbers will change dramatically just due to recent trends and how many students are applying. You will notice that we have, if you're, you guys are probably familiar with the acronyms for all of the military branches, we do have the U.S. Coast Guard license attached to mechanical engineering, marine engineering technology, and marine transportation. We're not a military academy, so we are separate from the ranks of United States Naval Academy and Army and Coast Guard Academy and Air Force. We're a maritime academy, so we graduate merchant mariners. They are not enlisted or commissioned upon graduation. Students do have to pay CSU tuition to attend. We do have options for students to pursue reserve options through ROTC with UC Berkeley. And so that is Navy, Marine, Air Force, and we're working on an Army contract. And then also we do have special Coast Guard reserve options and a specialized Navy and Marine reserve option that's unique to the maritime academies. But that is, students do have to elect to participate in that. Now the Coast Guard license that we offer is the Coast Guard is a regulating body for anyone who wants to work on a commercial vessel, kind of like the DMV, except it's for the ocean. So the Coast Guard license is just distributed by the Coast Guard. It is not a commissioning it's not a commissioning program necessarily. With our leadership development, we have 3 different systems. So there are a lot of opportunities for leadership positions for students, whether it is very small and just a small amount of responsibility to being a senior in charge of everyone else. So the largest program is called the Corps of Cadets. Every single student is required to participate in the Corps of Cadets. This is where the uniform requirements come into play, grooming standards, and also just code of conduct. Now, our uniforms are required to be worn to class during business hours, which is essentially 7:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. So similar to a private high school experience where everyone is required to wear a uniform to class, except at a college level. Students will wear different uniforms depending on the occasion. So if they're in a more hands-on class where they might be working with engines or something, they have a dark blue version of this work uniform that hides the oil and the grease a little better. They have a more formal outfit for, days that call for it. There are more leisure activity or leisure wear options as well. There's what we call spirit gear, which is t-shirts or any kind of Cal Maritime branded outfit that is clean cut, non-ripped, and non-altered. Students can wear that on spirit days, like when we have home games for any of our sports. So there's a mix throughout the year. But in the evenings or in the weekends, students are not required to be in these uniforms. There's no bed checks. There's no lights out. There's no drilling, saluting. It's not quite as much of a militaristic structure. We've just kind of taken pieces of a military experience to suit the needs of instilling working with a team, professional mannerisms, time management, just all of those components in helping our students be as prepared for, as I said, the job market as possible. Now, there are two activities that students are required to participate in addition to classes. The first one is called formation, and that's actually a picture you see there on the top. It takes place every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7:30. It's over by 7:40 at the absolute latest. We take roll, we make sure everyone's wearing their uniforms properly, everyone is well groomed, we give out any important announcements, and then students are dismissed. The Corps of Cadets is structured between different companies, divisions, sections, and squads. And this allows students to have kind of small communities within the overall campus community that they develop relationships with. But it also helps us schedule them for things later on, because we can say, okay, the engine company or the engine section 3 and 4 are doing this at this time, and 1 and 2 are doing this at this time. And it really comes in handy not only for scheduling classes, because you go through your class schedule with your major, specifically with your division, and then also for those summer experiences, it helps us plan in advance. So it really comes in handy having this structured community on campus. Now, the other activity is called watch standing. Basically, this is a 4-hour activity that takes place every 2.5 to 3 weeks or so, where students are standing watch, so standing at the ready and monitoring their station. But it's a skill building activity. So engineers will stand a safety watch in the engine room of the Golden Bear, where they're just there to monitor the operations in the systems. They do rounds every 15 minutes, check all the temperature readouts, check all the pressure readouts. Marine transportation students stand a safety and security watch. So in addition to checking everyone on and off of our training ship, the Golden Bear, that's attached to campus, they also do their rounds every 15 minutes of the bridge, as well as different access points of the Bear. And then business, global studies, and oceanography students stand a security watch at the entrance to our boat basin. And both of these checkpoints are actually mandated by the United States Maritime Administration, who technically monitors all of the maritime academies, and technically they own the pink slip to the Golden Bear, so whatever they say goes. Now, ASCMA, this is the Associated Students of Cal Maritime, also a great option for leadership opportunities, but this is more of the student government side. So you're elected vice presidents, class treasurers, and such. So they're responsible not only for student life, like clubs and activities, both on and off campus, but they are also responsible for voicing student concerns, not only to our administration, but also to the Chancellor's Office, which is the umbrella organization that covers all of the campuses, and also to, the government level, up to, the governor's office, and, California legislature, in terms of student rights and combating tuition hikes and all of that. Now, RHOs, these are commonly called resident assistants at most other universities. They are your peer students that live in the residence halls. They receive tremendous amount of extra training on conflict management, just helping resolve issues between roommates. They also are there for, mental health assistance to students that have just moved away from home, and it's a big undertaking, especially if they're first generation college going students. And they also are responsible for putting together different activities for students in those residence halls to participate in. So that there's always this, elements of campus life happening to allow students to decompress and have different activities. And sometimes they're very small. Sometimes they're intended to only be 15-minute activities. Like, for example, last week we had a rock painting thing where students could find these perfectly smooth river rocks, and they would paint different symbols on them. And so we actually, we're using those painted rocks to line the entryway into campus for a little bit of fun. But it's just something very small, and it's just a quick in between classes break that students can just use to kind of shake loose and relax for a minute. Now, getting into the programs and how to get in, as I mentioned, business, global studies, and oceanography are not impacted. So if you meet the CSU minimum eligibility, you are going to be guaranteed an offer. Sometimes parents don't believe me. They never believe a guarantee. And I say, you can tell from home for these 3 majors if you're going to qualify and if you're going to get an offer. If a student has less than a 2.5 GPA, which is the minimum CSU needed to to guarantee that offer, there are other things that we will consider. So we're going to look at overall how a student's academic GPA was, so that in between that 2.0 and the 2.49. And then we're also going to say, okay, you know, between last semester and this semester, so for the seniors, in between basically your junior spring semester and your your senior fall semester, how did you do? How did your GPA improve? How did your, you know, we'll look at that. We'll take that into consideration. We'll look at how many extra classes in your A through G categories that you took. So if you took extra social science classes beyond the 2-year minimum, if you took an extra English class, like if one semester you did English and poetry, if you took extra math classes beyond Algebra 2, if you took extra science classes or performing arts classes or language classes, we will take all of those extras into consideration as well, in addition to, you know, whether or not a student has need for basically a social services bump. Now, the impacted majors, so that's facilities engineering technology, marine engineering technology, marine transportation, and mechanical engineering. These 4 are all impacted, but as you can see there, the impaction has changed just a little bit. So to give you guys an idea of how much it's changed, 3 years ago, we gave an offer to maybe 40% of the qualified applicants. Marine transportation had a waiting list of 75 students, and up until last year, no one had ever gotten off of any of our waiting lists. It was just too competitive. So it was 3 years ago, so last year, completely different. No one saw this coming. Last year, we gave an offer to 80% of our qualified students, and we had a waiting list of about 10 students for marine transportation, but only on the transfer side. We let every single freshman who was qualified, who applied, get it. We were able to give every single one of them an offer. And this was all pre-COVID. So we had no idea what caused the change in the amount of students applying. It fluctuates each year. But we do expect, because of COVID, that the next few years will be lower application numbers, which means higher rates of acceptance. Now, for the impacted majors, additional things we'll consider in terms of the level of competition will include a math GPA. So all of the courses that you take for math, as well as any kind of computer science, math-based, like engineering, those types of classes. We will consider, especially if you take classes beyond Algebra 2, so statistics, pre-calc, math analysis, trig, any of those are going to be extra. And then a resume. So the resume is all the information you want to tell us about that's not featured on your transcript, like working a part-time job or restoring a car with your family or anything like that. We want it in bullet point format on a resume. Last but not least, mechanical engineering. It is still designed to be a 4-year program. So in order to get students through our program in 4 years, they have to start out with calculus. So they do need to have the prerequisite to high school calculus coming in. So most of your schools call it pre-calculus. If your school calls it math analysis or anything different, we simply go onto your school's website. And if we can't find it on the website, we contact your school's registrar just to confirm that you're taking the correct class for mechanical engineering applicants. So it is still a personalized application process. Now that international experiences, as I mentioned, every single student is required to do this. So for the engineers and the marine transportation students, they go out on the training ship. As I mentioned, she's about 500 feet long, and about 300 people go out on her during the summer. And so that does include faculty and support staff. The way we're able to do this is 2-week rotations. So students will do, they're based on their division, they'll do 2 weeks of classes and then 2 weeks of watch standing, that 4-hour activity, and then 2 weeks of day work, which is maintenance on board the vessel. So different maintenance projects. So that way somebody, a section is taking classes at the same time that someone else is doing day work, at the same time that someone else is standing watch, so that not everyone is trying to gather in the same place at the same time, because not only would they not fit, but if you put that much weight on one side of the ship, she will actually list. So during the 60-day cruise, they're typically in port for about 3 or 4 days. And so students get anywhere from like 6 to 12 hours, depending on what their schedule is like, for Liberty time. So it's time to go off and explore, find food, souvenirs, go rent a surfboard, whatever they want. With the International Study Tour, this is designed for our business, global studies, and oceanography majors. So these students are typically spend 1 month where they fly to another country and live in that country or multiple countries, depending on their ability to travel. So in that month, their daily activities, they're typically visiting areas like shipbuilding yards where they're both building vessels or sometimes renovating vessels. Like one that they went to, they actually were cutting a cruise ship in half. They had pre-built an extra, I think it was like a 25-foot section or something like that, and they literally just plasma cut the cruise ship in half, split it, put that section in, and then welded it back together. It was really incredible for our students to be able to check it out. They've gone to like culture and historical landmarks. They have business presentations and business lunches. They also are required to give presentations to some of these companies. But because they're living there, their evening time is their liberty time to go off and explore. And because we are a Cal State, business, global studies, and oceanography students can easily do the International Study Tour and the traditional study abroad semester. And the study abroad semester is great for students that want to travel, obviously when it's safe to again, that want to travel without spending extra money, because you're essentially an exchange student. So the money you would spend at your Cal State for that one semester simply gets transferred to the other university. So it is an excellent opportunity for California State University students, including Cal Maritime students. With financial aid, I can't recommend this enough. Basically, when you're applying to college, should match when you're applying for free money for college. So you always want to make sure that you do apply in the fall of your senior year, same time as you apply to the Cal States. And the reason for that is scholarships often need time to review all those essays. So they don't have applications open in the spring. There are a number of scholarships that we offer as an institution, meaning we do, well, not me, but our institution directly has a hand in selecting these recipients. And so they're a mix between merit-based, meaning how well you've done in your extracurriculars and things like that, and need-based, so your financial situation. And then there's also a lot of industry partners. So there's a lot of companies and professional organizations out there that offer scholarships. And some of them are, $500 a semester, which is still a good amount of money. And some of them are fantastic. Some of them are $5,000 a semester or $5,000 a year. So it's always worth applying to, the small ones and the big ones as well. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. If you guys are not familiar with that, that is how you overall apply for national financial aid or for federal financial aid. So areas like the PLUS loan, the Perkins loan, the Cal Grant, the Cal Dream Act, those are all the ones, the FAFSA is crucial for being able to qualify for all those areas. And this is all in addition to anyone who's considering anyone who's considering continuing on with ROTC or any other military option once they get to college. There are different types of military financial aid for students, but you don't want that to be your sole revenue for college. You want to make sure that you're also looking for other avenues as well, just in case the budget changes down the line. So for, when the application season is, and this is, this is true for juniors, any sophomores we have in the audience, and seniors, this is true for everyone. The application period for traditional, what's called a first-time freshmen, so you guys that are entering college full-time for the first time, is always going to be October and November of your senior year. So you essentially apply about a year in advance. And again, it's because we need time to review your applications, just like the scholarships do. Now this year, we're opening it up actually to December 4th. So just a few extra days, but it is still a short window because you guys have so much else that you're balancing. So a safe rule of thumb is make sure that you've applied to all of your colleges and financial aid before Thanksgiving. That's a good deadline to give to yourself. Now we have an early action option, which means students can apply early and get a decision early, but they are not required to commit any sooner. May 1st is the national commitment deadline. So every accredited institution in the United States we're all required to guarantee your offer until May 1st. We can't pressure you to choose any sooner because it's not fair to you guys as seniors. We do have a great open house coming up about late October. It's going to be October 17th to the 22nd. So we've spaced it out. So like we have one session on a Saturday, another session on a Tuesday and Thursday and such. So basically we have individual sessions for finance rate and admissions, goes a little more in depth. We have a session for campus life, like housing, ASCMA students are going to be talking, clubs are going to put together quick videos about what they're all about. And then we'll have individual sessions for each of the majors. So the faculty from those majors, once we'll be teaching you down the line, they come out and they roll out the red carpet and they say, this is everything our major is about. These are projects we work on. These are companies you can go to work for. These are the types of internships our students have done. And oftentimes they will bring students in also to talk about their experience. So it's a great opportunity if any of you guys are even just on the fence about Cal Maritime and just want to learn a little bit more. These are completely free and they are recorded. So if you can't make one of the sessions, the information will all be available. But that website down there in the bottom corner, csum.edu/preview day. Now, as I mentioned, my name's Jessica. I'm essentially your counselor. I review all of the first-time freshman applications. And so you can always reach me at my email, which is jsotuyo@csum.edu, or a safe one is always our main admissions email, which is admission@csum.edu. Now, there are telephone numbers listed next there, but I'm gonna tell you right now, almost every admissions counselor, financial aid counselor, most staff in the CSU, we're all working remotely at home. And so not all of us are able to get to our phones in time between virtual meeting, virtual recruiting, Zoom meetings, and some of us have, toddlers at home and everything. So email, always a great way to catch us. I'm also including the link to signing up for our contact list in the chat for everyone, just so that if anyone has, maybe looked at Cal Maritime and said, okay, this sounds kind of interesting, I want to learn a little bit more, you do have the link to sign up just to get on our mailing list. So it just kind of keeps you in connection with us. So I'm going to open the floor up to see if anyone has any questions. You can enter them into the chat, or if you have the ability to unmute yourselves, you are welcome to. This is, that chance now for the Q&A.
Someone entered something in the chat. Hang on. Oh, never mind. That was you. All right. So apparently we don't have any questions. I did take some notes, ma'am, so I just want to cover a couple things with the class. Like everything else we do in here, in addition to teaching us how to become leaders through community engagement, ROTC is designed to present you with opportunities, with options after high school, so that you can at least get the gears turning and have some ideas of what you want to do when you leave. Cadet Gunnar Yanez graduated last year, and she's at Cal State University Maritime Academy right now as a freshman. As you heard, it's a professional academy. This doesn't mean you're going to the military. They have a lot of STEM majors. That's where the jobs are. And they have very high job placement opportunities. So it's absolutely something we at least want to consider. In addition to that, as Jessica talked about, a lot of timelines and financial aid processes that are going to apply no matter what school you want to go to. So those ears should be perked up. And that's all.
So we did have a question in the chat, and that was, what is our acceptance rate? And that's always a great question. As I mentioned a few years ago, it was 40%, meaning that we gave an offer to 40% of qualified freshman applicants. So that was 3 years ago, which is 2 admission cycles ago. Last year, so last year's application cycle, we gave an offer to 80% of the qualified students. So it fluctuates each year, typically not that dramatically, but it does fluctuate. We are expecting, as I mentioned, due to COVID, there's a lot more students that are electing to stay closer to home, go to community college for the first few semesters, and that is completely understandable. And so we are expecting to have high rates of acceptance over the next few years. So there's a question about housing. That's an excellent question. As I mentioned, we do things a little differently. We have a residency policy, meaning that all students are required to live on campus all 4 years. So freshmen all the way up to seniors. However, we do grant off-campus housing. So students that come in who can prove that they have financial hardship and can't afford to live on campus, students that live right next door in, you know, our hometown, students that live in a commutable distance, or we do actually, because of the nature of what we offer, we're the only place west of Texas to get these types of licensing degrees. We get students that are coming in who have families, or they are, you know, what we call adult learners. So they're over the age of 30 and maybe they held a different type of job in a different industry and want to make a change. They want to sail. So we do have a lot of options for off-campus housing. We do have options for students to petition for off-campus housing. We don't currently provide any apartments or anything like that. We're still in the process of, because we're nestled into a neighborhood, we haven't built apartments nearby. But as I mentioned, we have 4 residence halls that are up the hills. And then the Golden Bear, in addition to being classroom space and laboratory space during the school year, she's actually a residence hall during the school year. So that's kind of a cool place for some of our freshmen to live. Cotton Candy Sunsets is the biggest hashtag with each incoming class, because our fall and October sunsets are almost always just beautiful pinks and reds. For parking, we do have stricter rules for incoming students. So freshmen typically are asked to leave their cars behind or park on the street. Permitted parking lots are reserved for sophomores through seniors. But we do provide a lot of off-campus transportation, and upperclassmen often they're leaving. They'll say, hey, does anyone need a ride to In-N-Out or Chipotle or anything like that? So.
Yeah. And having 2 kids that are sophomores in college right now, one in UC, one in Cal State, that's pretty typical of any college you go to.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I have 2 kids that are freshmen or sophomores in college now. And I was just saying that whether you go UC or CSU, that's pretty typical with the parking and the car situation.
Yeah. And half of that is just, you know, colleges have to make a choice. Do we want to have parking structures for you guys, or could we make that building you know, learning environments, or even just social environments, like making it a student center or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty typical for, you know, there to be limited parking on most campuses, but also, you know, especially being in the Bay Area, it's very easy to get to Oakland or Berkeley or San Francisco. We actually are right next to the ferry terminal. So that is a really easy way to drop into San Francisco. You don't deal with any traffic. You have Wi-Fi and a snack bar the whole journey over, and that's just an hour. So a lot of students will elect to do that.
Oh, sure. Not the
So if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on and to, you know, listen to everything I have to say. Like I mentioned, if anyone is interested either in attending our open house, the link is there. Now it's time to take a screenshot. Or if anyone is interested in signing up for our main contact list, you'll still get an invitation to Preview Week. And that's just csum.edu/info. Thank you, guys.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the teacher to student ratio?
So actually, it's a question. I don't know that off the top of my head. It's always in the back of my brochures. It's small. It's less than 20. I know that. And I can actually personally attest to not just the ratio, but the relationship that you'll have with your professors here. Because I actually chose Cal Maritime for business, whereas most recruiters, most of the alums that recruit for us, they're all engineers or marine transportation graduates, because they're like, that's what they wanted to come here for. I fell in love with Cal Maritime because I did not want to have to think about what I had to wear each day. I went to a high school that wore a uniform. I saw a college that went in uniform, and I went, perfect, let's do that. But there are, because of the smaller class sizes, there's no TAs, there's no teacher's assistants. So like graduate students that are going through their programs that help teach a class, you're learning directly from the primary resource. You're actually learning from the person you pay money to learn from. And then also a lot of these professors, because they develop relationships with you, they listen to you in conversations, even if you're just saying this is something in the beginning of the semester, two years later when it's time for you to graduate, that professor might see you in one of the hallways and say, oh, hey, you said you were interested in this particular industry. I have a coworker or something. I have somebody who I just met who I thought would be a good fit. And so they'll pass their contact information along. And so that's called networking. And a lot of the professors do that, and they maintain good relationships with the students even after graduation. And that's just a part of being a smaller community.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for having me. I am going to go ahead and let you finish. Good luck with your, assessment test.